Welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast with your host, Johnny Gorky. You have the power to overcome challenges and fears. Let my voice and the voice of many others show you how to transform these challenges into opportunities. To learn more about future podcasts and read episode show notes, check out my website at www.thepowerofyourvoice.com.
Today's interview is about an amazing woman named Nancy McKay. She coaches women over 50 who are going through a major transition and wonder what the hell happened. They feel lost and afraid because they don't know what their future looks like. She helps them figure out how to feel happy and at peace with their life. During our conversation today, we talk about her father's suicide, his struggles with being an alcoholic, and how it affected her own life and marriage. Nancy talks about her challenges with drinking and how her own very life was flashed before her eyes during an attempted suicide, and how on her 50th birthday she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer and how she overcame it. Nancy has found her own voice. She believes that things happen for a reason. If she did not get sober or face cancer, she would not be here today. Today she helps women who have gone through something that rocks their world and do not know what the hell to do. She can help you find what really lights you up and what doesn't. She knows how to let go of the bad stuff so you get more of the good stuff. Nancy, welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast. I'm so glad to have you here today. You have overcome so much, and now you empower women over 50. So I want to go into my first question, Nancy. Nancy, let's jump in right into your incredible story. Can you please share with us how your upbringing was as a child?
Sure, I can. Well, first, I want to thank you for inviting me on the show. It's really an honor to be here.
Thank you.
So I grew up with, my father was an alcoholic, and my mother drank right alongside him, but I think it was more as a defensive tack on her part. I don't think she was an alcoholic. I think she just needed to medicate in order to tolerate him when he was drinking. And it was, they were high functioning. My father was very high functioning. He was very well employed, and, from that, looking from the outside, you'd never know that was the situation, really. I grew up water skiing and figure skating and snow skiing, and we had some really good times. But as the years went by, my father's alcoholism got worse, and I learned from a very young age to walk on eggshells, and it changes how you see the world and how you're brought up when your parents aren't completely present.
Okay, so what's like your first memory as a child when you would say, oh my gosh, my dad, he's been drinking too much?
Gosh, I would say I was probably, 10, maybe a little younger than that, and realizing that his demeanor was different. His patience was much shorter. He didn't have patience. I was brought up with children should be seen and not heard feelings. So, it was uncomfortable. And when I was really young, of course we were in bed by the time, things got out of hand. But as I got older, I was much more aware of it, and would really get embarrassed when they drank too much, and if my friends were around or something like that, it was very embarrassing.
It's interesting how you say that, because my mother, she's 73 years old, and what just came out of your mouth, children are meant to be seen, not heard. Her mother was alcoholic, and that's exact same way she said it.
Mm-hmm.
That is something. There are people who are listening to this right now How did having an alcoholic as a father affect you as a child? And why is it so important to become sober?
Well, the effect on me as a child of an alcoholic was just that I never learned how to speak my voice because my opinion was not not only not sought after, but it wasn't respected. So I learned from an early age that you don't offer an opinion. So I didn't learn what I liked because I was told what I liked. You know, this is this is the way it is. This is what you're going to do, and that's the end of the discussion. And so you are stilted. You know, your your upbringing is stunted. I guess I should say stunted in that regard, that you don't get to try things out in a safe environment to see what works for you and what doesn't. You're told what's going to work for you and what doesn't in no uncertain terms. And then if you veer off that path, then, you know, there's consequences. And so I learned how to toe the line. And I was taught that my feelings didn't matter really. And you grow up with a compromised sense of self.
When you were a child, you didn't have a voice, your opinions didn't matter. That must have been extremely difficult as a child. I can only imagine being 10 years old. So I wanted to ask you this. If you could go back to that 10-year-old girl, Nancy, what would you tell that young girl?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd probably say, you know, hang on. It's it's going to work out in the end, and uh, you're gonna go through hell, but you're gonna come out thriving.
And you have,
Yeah.
which is just absolutely beautiful. Now, you might have somebody who's listened to this who maybe they have young children, maybe they're struggling with being alcoholic and they know they have issue, but they don't really want to admit it. Why is it so important that they really get this under control? Because it's really damaging their children's lives, their spouses' lives, their relationship with all these people who really love and care about them.
Well, you know, unfortunately, I don't know, I hope to inspire someone to take a look at themselves honestly. I know before I got sober, I was looking for any breadcrumb that I could find that would support a decision for me to get sober. Um, because you know, my Chardonnay was my best friend. And, you know, my husband was my drinking buddy, and all of our friends drank just like I did. And it was a really difficult um, thing to start to grasp that it was having a negative effect on my life. And so anytime I heard something from someone who had gotten sober, or something to indicate that recovery wasn't um, the horrible end of your life as you know it, sort of thing, I would really kind of grasp onto that, and I was very drawn to those messages. So hopefully that's the message that one of your listeners is getting from me. And that message is that it's not the devastating thing that you think it could be. It's the best thing you can possibly do for yourself. And I wouldn't even, you know, obviously your getting sober has a wonderful impact on the rest of your family and your friends, and maybe you're able to keep your job, or whatever. But you have to get sober for yourself. You can't do it for your kids or your husband or your job, because the first time they piss you off, your chances of you picking up a drink are that much stronger. So you really have to do it for yourself, and be really committed to that.
I like that. That is very beautiful, because yes, at the end of the day, you have to do it for yourself. You have to love yourself and believe that you are worth it.
Definitely. And when I quit drinking, it just became very clear to me that it wasn't safe for me to drink anymore. And so I, I chose to quit, and fortunately I haven't had a drink since then, and that was over 10 years ago. But I didn't love myself at the time. I didn't really think I was worth it. So you don't have to be there in order to quit drinking, but that's one of the things that you learn when you quit drinking, is you learn to love yourself, and you learn that you have value and that you are enough. And that's one of the beautiful things about getting sober, is you learn about yourself, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yes. So how were you able to shift and be like, okay, well, I'm drinking. This is not safe anymore. I got to get sober. I got to do this for myself. And how were you able to overcome this? Like support from friends, family? Were you going to AA meetings? What exactly did you do?
Yep, I partook with a 12-step program, and I had lots of support, and an incredible fellowship. And I just I did what was suggested, and I knew that my life depended on it. Um, I had decided to get sober after a failed suicide attempt, and that scared me. And it made it very, very clear that if I drank, I would most likely die. So I found that I had a survival instinct that I didn't know I really had.
Yes. Well, going into suicide. So we all have good days. We all have a few bad days. However, you once had a really, really bad day on what some might call a superstitious day on Friday the 13th of March of 2009. Your
Yep,
life changed. So can you go into that, please?
sure. I woke up with a hangover. I I had gotten to the point in my drinking where I wasn't drinking in the morning. If I had, it probably would have been easier to put my eyeliner on. My hands were shaking so badly at that point that it was difficult for me to put on my eyeliner. I was working independently. I didn't have a real job. I was I was trying several different kind of get rich quick opportunities, and none of them were working well. I was also a kitchen and bath designer, and that business was slowing down. And so I was meeting with a friend later in the morning, and it was the first time I walked when I on my way to the bathroom in his house. I had to walk by his wet bar, and it was really the first time in my life I considered having a swig of vodka just to steady myself. I knew something was happening to me that day, and I was very emotionally not well that day. And my friend and I had a class to go to, and we went to the class, and then he was meeting my husband and I and some other friends for cocktails later. And so that afternoon I got home, and there was a little bit of Chardonnay left in the bottle, and I polished that off, and then we went to the bar and had a few glasses of wine there, maybe 3 or 4. I don't recall having anything to eat. And when we left a couple hours later, I was staggering. And we got home, and I said to my husband, I can't believe it. We forgot to stop at the liquor store. We're all out of wine. And he said, well, I think you've probably had enough. And that was all it took to send me into a fit of anger and then a fit of horrible self-loathing, really. And I just felt like he'd be better off without me. And so he was in the living room watching television and with our dog, and I was in the bedroom having an enormous pity party, and decided that I would shoot myself. So I got his gun out of the nightstand, and I was confused because it wouldn't fire. And then I realized that the safety was on. And as soon as I took the safety off, the gun fired, and fortunately I didn't have it pointed at my head at that point. I shot my husband's pillow, but I didn't hurt myself or anyone else, which was a blessing.
Thank God.
And that was what I have now called my intersection of desperation and grace. And I know that my higher power was watching over me and keeping me safe there, because there's no reason in the world why that should not have gone horribly wrong. And so that's what scared me sober. That took care of it. I haven't had a drink.
Well, thank God. And thank God you're okay. My gosh. Yeah, well, and this story, it's interesting because when you go back to before all this happened, and I want to say my condolences to the loss of your father. Your father was alcoholic, and he commits suicide.
Yeah.
And I think it's so. My father, as I said, he had the MS, and when I was probably like 13, he went in the garage. He started the car and closed the garage, and he tried to commit suicide. And people don't realize that when you do this and you're successful, it literally destroys families. What happens with your experience after losing your father? For anyone who's listening to this right now, who's thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to overcome this, which, you absolutely can. It's like we are able to overcome this. And sometimes, we have situations in life. It's tough. It's challenging, but we have to remember there are people who love and care about us so, so, so very much. So for anyone who's listening to this, what happened to you after your father commits suicide, and why is it so important that people get help?
Well, when my father committed suicide, it sent my drinking into a whole different realm. I was riddled with guilt, thinking that there was something I could have done, I should have done, what didn't I do, what did I miss? And, we had conversations about suicide on many, many occasions. My mother died in 1995 from lung cancer, and my father was just never the same after that. And he got sober 3 months before my mom died and stayed sober for 2 or 3 years, I think. And then he relapsed, and then he got sober again, and then he relapsed and he got sober, and we did that tango for quite a few years. And he missed my mom so much, and I told him, I said, you need to start living your life. And if if you're, and we talked about this, if you're miserable, what's the point, right? And I think he had just gotten to that point. He felt like he couldn't do it. He couldn't, he'd been drinking again, and I don't think he thought that he had I don't think he had a choice. I don't think he thought he had a choice. I think he thought that was it, that he wouldn't be able to get sober again, and that he was just absolutely miserable. And so he took a bunch of pills and I think some grain alcohol or something like that. And I found him the next morning, and it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating.
Yeah, that's not something that no one should ever have to experience, their own parents or child or anybody
Right.
actually doing that.
And I mean, my uncle had committed suicide, and so I suffered from depression. I do suffer from depression. For most of my life I have, and so I have that tendency, and but I don't feel like I do anymore. I feel like I have come out on the other side of that because of what I've learned since I got sober and since I survived cancer. When I got cancer, I really felt that survival instinct kick in. And so if there's anybody out there that is struggling with depression, alcoholism, get help. There's always a better way. There's a saying about suicide that it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Exactly.
And it's so hard on the people that you leave behind, and it's when you're in it, you think that that's the only option that you got, and that you just want to stop hurting, and it's a very selfish act. Because you're very self-centered about that, and you don't take a beat. You don't take a breath to think about what it's going to do to your loved one.
Yeah, the most important thing is we have to take responsibility. This is something I've never ever shared on my podcast or pretty much with anybody. But I have 3 kids, and my baby girl, she's 1. My second he's 7, and then my oldest is 9. But my oldest one is probably about 1. I got in an argument with my wife. She was driving the car, and I was like, I'm going to jump out of the car and kill myself, which was, oh my God, that was just horrible. But I was pissed off at my wife because of something. But the truth is, I was angry at myself, and I didn't want to take responsibility. Thank God my wife is a therapist, because she knew how to talk to me. And now I have 2 other kids. But it's like, yeah, so many times we get so upset, we don't want to take responsibility for our own shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not going to stay like this forever. We can overcome this. And all this stuff is just amazing when you think about it. It's really amazing life experiences that now we get to share with other people, to let other people know that, no, your life doesn't have to be like this.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was spared, is to share the message and to share my story, and to let people know that you don't have to hurt yourself, you don't have to kill yourself, you don't have to stay drunk, you don't have to stay in hell. You can get out of it. You can help yourself.
Like what you're just saying now might be somebody who's listening, and they're like thinking, you know what, there's no hope. They're thinking about suicide. What would you say to those people?
Ask for help. Just ask the universe for help, ask God for help, and then pick up the telephone and call somebody. If you're thinking about suicide, call the suicide hotline. There is help out there for you, and you have to ask for it. And that's really the only thing I can say is you just have to be willing to ask for help, and understand that what you're going through is fixable, and that it doesn't have to end the way you think it does.
That's so true, especially for us guys, because I'm a guy. my ego and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, no, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for support. There are people who love and care about you. Reach out to somebody, because somebody there on the hotline or on websites, which I'll post phone numbers and links to different outreaches that people can reach out to. But it's so incredibly important to know that there are people who love and care about you, and they want you to be here because you have a purpose.
Absolutely. Everyone has a purpose. And, we don't all know it. It took me until I was, you know, almost 60 years old before I found my purpose. So, um, we all have one, and it's just, life is worth living.
It is.
Even in your darkest moments, it really, there's a better way.
Yeah, and the important thing to remember is we're not put on this planet just to be miserable, to hate our jobs. We have a great purpose. And the great thing is, too, is throughout life, our purposes constantly change. Now, I wanted to go into, you mentioned almost 60. On your 50th birthday, you were given what some would say a very scary surprise. And yet it caused you to shift into becoming this incredible life coach that you are today. What was your mindset during this whole experience, and what exactly happened?
Well, in the fall of 2014, one morning in November, I woke up, or got out of the shower actually, and thought I was having an appendicitis attack. I doubled over in pain, and so my husband took me to the ER, and I wasn't having an appendicitis attack. They thought I had a fibroid tumor on my right ovary, and my doctor, who I was told to follow up with, wasn't terribly concerned. She condescendingly said, "Nancy, fibroids rarely turn to cancer." So she wasn't really terribly concerned, and she said, "But if it makes you feel any better, we'll do a follow up in, a couple months or something." And so that was survival instinct kicked in, and I said, "Yeah, you're damn right we will." And so we did a follow up, and she called me a few days later and said, "You have a mass on your right ovary, and I'm referring you to a gynecologic oncologist." And so I had to wait a couple weeks before I could get in to see that doctor, and he wouldn't commit to anything. He said, "We'll do a full hysterectomy, and we'll do the pathology while you're still on the table so that we know what we're dealing with." And so when I woke up, he said, "You have stage 1C ovarian cancer," which is just about the lowest grade you can get. 1A is the lowest, and 1C is the first level where you have to undergo chemo as a precaution. So I didn't want to do that. My mother had gone through chemo with her cancer, and I saw what it did to her mentally and physically, and I didn't want any part of it. And I had a friend that I'd worked with who had gone through chemo for her breast cancer that had recurred after many years. And she had a reaction on her last chemo session and was sent to the hospital, where she died 10 days later.
Oh my gosh.
And so I really was not interested one bit in having chemo, because I thought that it would make me so sick that I wish I was dead. And so I didn't really want to do it. And then it was the weirdest thing. One day I just knew I should. I did a 180, and it wasn't a conversation that I had with anybody. It was just like, all of a sudden I changed my mind. And it seemed like the prudent thing to do. So I did. But that was, that was a very interesting time. I was 58. I had always told myself that my mom was diagnosed with her cancer at 59. She died on her birthday when she was 64.
My God.
And so I told myself if I could make it past 59 without getting cancer, then I was home free. And I was 58. So there's a little bit of mind work in there. I think that played a part. And but while I was going through chemo, I say that I lost my hair, but I gained my strength. And I really feel that that is what happened to me. I found an inner strength that I never knew I had. And I realized that people love me, you know, more people love me than I ever thought they did. And it really turned into a gift because going through that just changed my perspective so much on life. And I had a great job, and the company I worked for was really supportive, and it was a wonderful company, but I was doing work that just wasn't fulfilling in the least. And as time went on, after I had gone through chemo, I realized that I needed something that was going to make me feel fulfilled, and that there was a reason that I went through these really challenging experiences. And I felt like it was so that I could help other people that were going through similar things and show them that they could get through it with their soul intact on the other side. And so when I was 60, I really started having a change of heart, and I started studying to become a life coach. And I couldn't be happier. I just, it's the best thing I've ever done.
I love that. You found your purpose.
Yeah.
During your chemotherapy, did you change your mindset? Was there something that you would do like every day? You'd wake up, you would say something.
I wish I could remember that. Chemo brain is real, number one. People talk about it, but it really is real, and you don't, you lose it makes your brain foggy. And I don't mean to make light of the question that you asked me. I don't know that I did, to be honest with you. At the time, I was just concerned with going through the process with as much dignity and grace as I could. I tried not to, I never felt sorry for myself, really. I never said, why me, or whatever. I was more like, why not me? Why shouldn't this happen to me? It was something to get through the process without feeling sorry for myself. And that, I think I must have prayed an awful lot. I think I must have just, given it up to God and the universe and whatever else you consider to be your higher power, and just make the best of it.
So would you say you could kind of, as you're going through chemotherapy and this challenging time, would you say you saw yourself like, I can see myself physically, okay, my body's getting healed, this is what I'm going to do after this and all that? Or
I probably did some of that, but if I did it, I didn't do it consciously. I know that I intended to go through it doing a lot of writing and reflecting. And to be honest with you, when push comes to shove, it's just something that I just needed to get through. I didn't document anything. I didn't do a lot of reading. I couldn't concentrate. That was part of my problem, is when you're going through chemo, they're pumping you full of poison. And so it has different effects on different people. I mean, the standard side effects, are a given. You're going to lose your hair. You're probably going to feel nauseous. Chances are you're going to be really achy, and there's a litany of side effects that you can go through. I was very lucky, but I couldn't concentrate much. And so, I'm sure I know I prayed a lot, and I know that I wanted to get through it gracefully. I didn't want to go through it as a victim. And so, I worked while I was going through it, and I just put one foot in front of the other, and kind of got a warrior attitude.
I love that.
I was fighting and eating a lot of ice cream.
So what gets you up every single day now?
Now?
Yes.
Oh, gosh, loving my life. It's such a pleasure to wake up and be excited for the day, and not dread having to go to a job that I don't like anymore, and commuting that drives me nuts. And so I commute down the hall, and I get to work with amazing women, and I have, an incredible tribe of women coaches who, we collaborate, we brainstorm, and I work by myself, but I have an incredible group of people that support me, and it's just so much fun. It's really fun.
Keyword fun, and you love what you do.
And I love what I'm doing.
That is living life with purpose.
This has just opened up so many great opportunities, and it's so fun to meet people that I normally wouldn't meet, and you're one of them. Our paths certainly wouldn't have crossed normally. So
Yeah, that's one thing I love about doing these podcast episodes and interviewing people, because it's like there's a time in our life where we just somehow align with certain people, and it's really remarkable.
it really is. It really is, and so that just tells me that what I'm doing is the right thing, and that I'm heading in the right direction, and I'm meeting the people that I need to meet, and my life is full. I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to do this.
You have a full cup, and it's abundant, and it just keeps on getting refilled.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. It's uncanny.
So if you could go back, is there anything in life that you would change differently?
Yeah, probably a thing or two. I don't believe in regret, but when I was growing up, we were active. I was an active kid, but I wasn't taught self-love, and I wasn't taught to really take care of myself. And I wish I had learned that earlier. And I've struggled with my weight for most all of my life, and that's that is something that is if I could do it all over again, I would look at the importance of taking care of yourself earlier. I'm not trying to body shame myself or anything like that, because I've accepted now. I'm quite fond of myself, and I like the whole package. But that's something that I missed early on, and so if I could change one thing, that would probably be it.
It's so incredibly important that we love ourselves for who we are, and realize also at the same time, if there's something that, hey, this is something I want to work on, that's something we get to work on.
Right.
We can change as much as we want, or we can be stubborn and not change.
Exactly.
But it is better.
Never too late, really.
No, it really, really never is too late. I mean, I've met people who've changed at like 90.
Yeah. I mean, I took horseback riding lessons this summer, so, there's still lots of hope for me.
Yes, I love that. So I wanted to ask you, what do you love about coaching, and why did you choose to work with women over 50?
Well, I love coaching because I don't tell my clients what they need to do. I help them listen to themselves. Truth of the matter is we all know deep down inside what we should do and how we feel about things. Frequently aren't aware of it. So, I couldn't tell you how you feel or how you should act or proceed with your life, but I can help you uncover your truth. So that's what I love is that I just, I facilitate and I help people find themselves.
That's good. I like that.
Thank you. And
And
the reason
yeah,
I like to work with women that are over 50 is because, they've been around the block once or twice and they are at a point, I'm my ideal client. So I like to work with women that have had some life experiences and are dealing with something that they're not quite sure what to do next. And so I help them uncover it and I help them discover themselves. And, it's just, I really want women, especially, to know that it's never too late to try something new, to do something different, to start over if it's necessary or if they want to, but they're too scared. And it never is. It's never too late. I am always running across evidence that it's never too late. The 100-year-old grandma that goes skydiving, or somebody that does something amazing, well into their later years that you just wouldn't normally see, and these are the people that prove to us that it's never too late. And my message is that it's your life and your choice, and it's up to us to do what excites us and thrills us and makes us feel passionate, and because nobody else is going to do it for you.
no, that's the truth.
Don't do it, someday it's going to be too late. And I've had friends that have died suddenly, and you just never know when it's your time. And so if you want to do something, you need to get on it and live your life and not listen to the naysayers that say play it safe and don't take a chance.
So many of us, unfortunately, take life for granted, or we just play safe. I think it's also important to realize too, it's like sometimes we are so stuck in, well, this is who I am, but it's so incredibly important to find like, what is your why? Like if you're working with women who are over 50, some of them, they have a couple kids, their kids are adults, but I think we get stuck in like, who are you? Well, I am a secretary, or I am the president of the company, or I am a mother. But like deep down inside, like who is that person as an individual? And sometimes we lose that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's great that you're able to help these women like basically kind of like be reborn, rediscover who they are and what their purpose is.
Right. Yep. That's my passion. And the more women that I can help and inspire, the better I feel. I just want to inspire as many women as I can, and as many people. I mean, it doesn't have to be women, but you know, everyone should know that they're in control of how they feel, how they think, and it's your life. And if you don't like something about it, change it. It can be pretty simple, you know. People make it very complicated, but it can be really very simple.
Oh, it can be. And just like you said, everybody can benefit it from.
Yeah.
I sometimes listen to women's podcasts. It's for women, but us as guys, I mean, we can learn so much about women just by putting ourselves in their shoes and their thoughts and all that.
Well, I applaud you for doing that. I don't want to make a generalization, but I would, so maybe I just shouldn't. I should stop right there. But I applaud you for doing that.
Thank you. So for anybody who's listened to this, what's like 3 really important things that you want people to take away from this interview? Men, women.
It's not too late and you're not too old. Number 1, your thoughts create your beliefs, and so you need to be careful of what you think. And don't be afraid to take a risk. Gosh, I have so many more.
Share a few more. You can never have too many.
Love yourself and
Love yourself. That's a good one. So for someone who's listening right now is like, honestly, I don't know if I really even love myself or even like myself. How can someone like rediscover themselves and start to really love and embrace who they are?
Well, that's where self-development comes in. So there's a bunch of books that you can read. There's a bunch of podcasts are wonderful, YouTube stuff. There's some great stuff out there. Working with a coach is, one of the fastest ways that you can get there. It's just, having interaction with someone who is going to challenge your beliefs is one of the best ways to discover yourself, because what you believe is probably not true. The things that are standing in your way are probably falsehoods, and there are things that really aren't true for you, but you've been programmed to believe them, or you've lived your life that way for so long and you don't know another way. And so if you open yourself up to inquiry and question your beliefs and question your thoughts, then you can learn a whole lot about yourself, and I bet you fall in love, because we're all unique and we all have so many gifts to offer. I used to just think that, well, before I got sober, I just, I really didn't think much, and I was high functioning, and so I did a good job, and I did this and I did that, and so on and so forth. But I knew that there was something missing. And one of the things that was missing was self-love, and I would not have come as far as I've come if I had not had some great coaching and some great therapy. And I still have I have a coach now, and I think it's really important for coaches to have coaches.
Very, very. I wouldn't recommend working with anyone who's a coach unless they are continue to be coached and they continue to get self-help, because we can always improve. And that's how you're able to add better value and really empower your clients.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's important to note that we have to be honest with ourselves. It's like I've started doing transformational coaching at the end of last year, and I realized a lot of times we're not always honest with ourselves. It's like, do you love yourself? It's like, yeah, of course I love myself. It's like, but do you really love yourself? And I was like, no. I'm like, I'm 38 years old. I'm like, of course I love myself. And then when we really dig in deep, then we realize, well, dang, this is why maybe I drink. This is why maybe I use drugs, or this is why I do this and that, because we're self-sabotaging ourselves. But until we take responsibility and we realize, wow, I need help, I need support, and become committed to it, things are not going to change.
Right. And so many people think that asking for help is a sign of weakness. And there's nothing further than the truth. That it's just asking for help is a sign of courage and bravery. It's not weak. And If my uncle and my father had the courage to ask for help, they wouldn't have killed themselves, but they thought it was weak. They thought it was a sign of weakness. It's one thing to go to a medical doctor, but it's something entirely different to get psychiatric help or a therapist or someone else. And there's just nothing further from the truth. Asking for help is very, very brave.
Yes, it is. And an important thing to know is that there are people who love and care about you and they want to help you, but they can't if they don't know that you need help. Because sometimes some people were really good at pretending everything is good when it's really not.
Right.
Usually that's when people ask us, so how you doing? Oh, I'm okay. Well, I'm fine. But come on, really? We don't live life just to be okay or just fine.
Right. And be authentic. If somebody asks you how you're doing and you're lying, then you're not doing yourself any favors, and you're not doing them any. People generally aren't going to ask you how you're doing unless they care. And so,
Unless you're standing at the line at the grocery store.
exactly. Well,
How are you doing? Do you really want to know?
let me tell you.
So is there anything that you like for people to take away from this as well, Nancy?
Like I said before, it's your life and it's your choice. And if you want to make a change, then it's up to you to do that. And there's a lot of help out there, no matter what it is that you're facing. And if anyone is looking for some support in that area, I would love to work with you.
All right, so let's go to that right now. So for anyone who's listening is like, Nancy, I love you. You sound great. Hey, I'm a lady. I'm over 50 years old. How can people engage with you? How can they find you on social media? Where can they find you online?
I'm all over social media. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and Instagram. And my website is www.amazingoutlookcoaching.com. And if you put that in and throw in a front / and gift, you'll get a freebie from me about handling fear.
I love that. That's great. So I'll definitely put the link for anyone who's listening. Just go to the website. You know where to go. And I'll post links to everything that you have, Nancy, okay?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being on The Power of Your Voice, Nancy. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Johnny here. Thank you for listening to the Power of Your Voice podcast. I'd love to get your feedback on this episode and how it impacted you. If someone in your life could benefit from this episode, share it with them. Check out thepowerofyourvoice.com to read show notes, leave a comment on the blog page, and to stay updated on all future episodes, subscribe to this podcast and leave a 5-star review. Thank you for your love and support.